நீங்கள் பார்த்து கொண்டிருப்பது உங்கள் கதிர் டிவி.
Now there'll be a video footage of the climax of the Duchess of Malfi, an amateur production, a student production. You see, even though you may not know John Webster's The Duchess of Malfi, you can just watch some of you may not have it in syllabus, but still you can watch the footage. The focus is on something else. The focus is on something else. After watching it, we can move on to our understanding of drama as a multimedial narrative. Okay? Okay.
But we set our foot upon some reverent history. But all things have their end. Churches and cities must have diseases like to men. Must have like death that we have.
Like death that we have.
We groaned, we thought, and gave a very deadly accent. I told you it was pretty one. You may make it. A huntsman, or a falconer, a musician, or a thing of sorrow.
A thing of sorrow.
Yes, sure. That suits it best.
That suits it best.
It was very like my voice.
High, wise voice.
Necessity compels me. You find it impossible to fly your fate.
Oh, fly your fate.
Talk with thee, but thou art a dead thing.
A dead thing.
What say to that? Mr. Soakley, do you agree to it? So, it must be done in the dark.
Antonio! Nay then, I see, I must stand upon my gods. My death is plotted. Here is the consequence of murder.
I'm puzzled in a question about hell. When I look into the fish ponds in my garden, I see a thing armed with a rake that seems to strike at me.
Oh, I come to kill thee!
Help! God! Help! Thou hast hurt me. Should I die like a leveret without any resistance? Help! 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 Help me! I am your brother.
心到的门口上面I'm doing now. The last part of my life did me a best service.
Should one fall in a frost and leave his print in snow, as soon as the sun shines, it ever melts both form and matter. I have ever thought nature doth nothing so great for great men as when she is pleased to make them loads of truth.
This is a production enacted by college students like you. My students enacted. This is a production from the American college. You see, this climax, this clipping has been deliberately projected here for further discussion. You see, if drama is a multimedial narrative, this production has tried to use all the effects, you see, like lighting, set designing, sound, music. Why do I say sound and music? Because there is BGM and there is special effects, and you have the song. You have the, like Kathir Tirunal in Balarama, Bharadam saying, Turiya Trika, the three impacts, the text, the instruments, and the actor. All these things we use. But my primary question is, today, if the vantage points of multimedial narratives or cinema and drama, what is this is a play footage, this is a play performance captured on a video camera and projected to you. That is how you watched it. Can you identify the basic difference? Can you bring out the basic difference between drama and cinema? Because cinema today is considered to be the vantage point of all arts, almost all sciences. You have acting there, music there, history there, philosophy there, set designing, painting, and everything is there in cinema, including science. It's a meeting point of science, technology, and art, creative art. So if cinema is the vantage point, as drama was in yesteryears, can you identify the basic difference between cinema and drama? This is for you. I'm not here to deliver a lecture in this afternoon session. What I need is an interaction. You see, I find two guys from American college. Yeah. Glad to see you here. You see, so can you tell me the basic difference? Anything from the making point of view or from the audience point of view, whatever. I'll tell you one thing. You heard the whistle, clappings and all. You see, you heard the whistles, clappings and all. But nothing would change when it is projected. When it is in the film format, whatever you do now, the film would be running. Because cinema is a product. Whereas, while I'm speaking, if you grow restless, then I will modify. When I perform, if there is a reaction from the audience, according to the audience, I will change my performance. So drama is a process. Drama is a process. Cinema is a product when it comes to audience. This is a clue I am giving. So from the audience viewpoint, do you find any difference between cinema and drama? For example, take me for an actor. Now I am performing in front of you, really. I had to perform in the afternoon session. You see, I am performing in front of you. There are audience from all directions, you see, and all these views are connected to me, maybe having the projection as the privileged viewpoint. You see, you have all the views towards me, you see. Now, do those who are seated in the last row get the same experience as those who are seated in the first row? No. In drama, it is not. It has its merit as well as its demerit. The merit is that for each and every one, a dramatic performance is an individual experience. The experience the one has on my left will be different from the one who is seated on the right. I mean not right. You see, the play may be same. From show to show, it differs. If there are two shows, the morning show and the afternoon show, if the actors could reproduce the replica of the rehearsal, grand rehearsal, even then as the audience change, the performance as an experience changes. If the audience receive the performance, then the performance as a theatrical performance for the audience. You see, because drama is not just a one-way communication or not even a two-way communication. Drama, an actor to the fellow actor and the actor to the audience and the member of the audience to another member of the audience and the audience to the performance. So it is a continuous, the dynamism of drama. Unlike the static nature of a finished product, drama is alive. Not only because you see people playing in flesh and bone, unlike the images you see. That is why deliberately I projected a clipping of a play production, even though it was an amateur production and captured by one of the students. Students performed and the students filmed. So the quality of it, you may understand, you see. But still, the experience of theatre is different from the experience of cinema. Whereas in cinema, in the footage, if it is a close-up shot, then it is a close-up shot for all of you. If it is a long shot, it is a long shot for all of you. You see, when Hitchcock made Psycho, for 72 seconds, the famous bathtub murder scene, which is on screen for just 72 seconds. For 72 seconds, Hitchcock selected 120 camera positions. He had an actress, he had a model, and he had a dummy too. And 120 positions, camera positions, 1 week shoot for something which happens on screen for 72 seconds. Each and every shot, close-up, long shot, mid-shot, high-level angle, low angle, high angle, extreme close-up, everything, you see, point of view, over the shoulder, every shot, each and every shot would have been or will be received by all the members of the audience alike. Whereas it is not so in drama. Am I not right? That is the special quality of drama. So in that sense, you see, if you take fiction, what is, you see, drama seldom makes good movies. Drama seldom makes good movies. Don't bring in Shakespeare here. Shakespeare has made excellent movies. And apart from Charles Dickens, you see, the best movies made in Hollywood or in English cinema in general, certainly Shakespearean films would list in them. You see, there's no doubt. But still, you see, drama makes not a good choice for a film script, because drama is basically dialogue. Because you have audience seated in different positions, in different distances. So drama is basically dialogue. You see, I'm not talking about kabuki theater here. The Japanese kabuki theater, K-A-B-U-K-I, the Japanese kabuki theater alone focused on 50% dialogue and 50% visual. Or else, drama basically is dialogue. I'm talking about traditional theater. I'm talking about traditional stage drama. You see, do you have a question here? I expect a question here. Do you have a question here to disagree with me when I say drama is basically dialogue? You may beg to disagree with me. You have every right to do so. Because you may have the question popping up in your mind, what about mime plays? Mime plays do not have dialogues at all. In that sense, do we say that silent films do not have, say, script? Silent films also have script. Mime play also has script. What happens in mime is the dialogues are translated into body language. The dialogues are translated into, obviously, the dialogues are translated into body language. When you go to body language, you need not say stout, lean, go, come. You need not, that need not be body language always. Because a sound has an image. If one can produce an image, then you can retranslate that into a sound. That's all. Don't take language as a very logical communication. It's not that. Is there any relationship between street and treat? Is there any relationship between tree and treat? So don't believe in the gimmicks that language is the ultimate form of communication and all. That is perhaps most defined and easiest form of communication, which is limited, that's all. Because a sound recalls some image in our mind, that's all. So, like verbal language, you also have body language, non-verbal language, you see. You have to watch the film Mori. At least you have to watch the title card of the film Mori. At least the title card of the film Mori. You see, when the title is flashed, it reads Mori. And it is written like a musical notation. And the BGM is silence. So the moment you see the title, many questions come to your mind. You ask, what is language? Then the musical notation like orthography, alphabets, ask the question, is not music a language? Then the BGM, which is silent, furthers the question, is not silence a form of music? You see, it is how you perceive, how a meaning is reached, okay? Now, what about fiction? Fictions will make very good films. I have left one question incomplete, that is how Shakespeare made good films. We will go to that later. Fictions will make very good films because in fiction there are the three basic qualities. In writing, what are the different types of writings, prose writings you find in a novel? Descriptive, very good, descriptive. Descriptive becomes the scene in cinema. Description becomes the scene in cinema. Then, description, narrative. Narrative becomes the action in cinema. So descriptive passages, narrative passages, and dramatic passages too. Dramatic means dialogue, you see. So all these three qualities are there in novel. So novels will always make excellent films, you see, excellent films. How Shakespeare made good films? Because Shakespeare, not knowing that there would be a genre like cinema coming in future, he had actually written his scripts in the film narrative form. Because Shakespeare was a master in metamorphosing the demerits into his resources. Can anybody tell me what a Shakespearean stage was? If you are asked to describe Shakespearean stage, if you are asked to describe Shakespearean theatre, what will be your piloting statement? What will be your piloting statement? There may be 2 or 3 most important features about Shakespeare's theatre to begin with. It is round, octagonal. The theatre was an octagonal in shape. It does not make much difference if a theatre is octagonal or rectangular. Crowd.
Groundlings gave importance much in his theatre.
Okay. Anything else? I'm talking about the shape of the theatre. In what way Shakespearean theatre is different from the theatres today or the conventional theatres today? From. Maybe the audience. Yeah. John Trevelyan, after having spent 40 pages in social history of England to describe Shakespeare's England, by the end of his 2-chapter description of Shakespearean England, finally he says, if you want to know more about Shakespeare's England, go to Shakespeare. It was Shakespeare's business to satisfy all kinds of audience from the groundlings to poets and scholars. Among the audience, there would be nut-cracking, beer-stinking, noisy audience, riotous audience, paying 1 penny and standing around the pit of the stage. You see, the pit, like modern-day ramp, fashion parade ramp, would be jutting into the audience 12 feet. 12 feet jutting into the audience, and you will have an acting area and the 3-storied backdrop, balcony, roof, and the chamber downstairs. You see, everything would be there. Right. Shakespeare was supposed to, you see, it was not, genius was not a cutting edge in Elizabethan theatre. Genius was a prerequisite to survive in the theatre because of the kaleidoscopic audience they had. Shakespeare's business was to satisfy them all, various types of audience. You cannot have a targeted audience in Elizabethan theatre. But the most important difference between today's theatre and Shakespeare's theatre was that it was an open-air theatre. It was an open-air theatre, and the stage was an unlocalized stage. Unlocalized stage. There was just one stage with the balustrade, the balcony, the roof, and the platform and everything. You see, there was no scenic changes. You cannot rig the stage. You cannot change the backdrops. The changeable scenery, the Italianate changeable scenery spearheaded by Giacomo Torelli came much later in 1725. Till then, there were just one stage, permanent, call it if you will. You see, permanent, unchangeable stage backdrop. So what would have happened today? If we don't have female actors, what would we do? We would do away with strong characters who are sexually, genderly female. But Shakespeare had created so many female characters. Like that, since there was no changeable scenery, Shakespeare, instead of sticking to one scene, Shakespeare thought, it was what you call genius. if people can take this stage for Alexandria, just because somebody says, just because an actor says, entering, this is Illyria lady, and the audience say, yes, 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 Illyria. See, they are ready, willing suspension of disbelief. You see, the dramatist did not have to create the illusion of reality, the deja vu, the nostalgia, the deja vu, the illusion of reality by putting in all his sources as we have done today. They needed not. The audience was very sharp. The enjoyment of theatre came to them so naturally, so spontaneously, that they were very accommodative. So the audience entered the theatre, and Shakespeare thought, if they could understand, accept this as Egypt, then the next scene, why can't they accept it at Rome? If you like the story of Verger, in Somerset Maugham or O. Henry sold a short story of Verger. If I can run one shop by appointing a manager without my direct presence, I can run 12 shops. That is the logic. That's like that. If the audience could understand one backdrop without any illusion of reality, if they can take one for Egypt, they can take it as many places as possible. So Shakespearean plays would have frequent scene shiftings. It would have frequent scene shiftings. And also the scenes would be very short. So economy and compression. Economy and compression. And frequent scene shifting was the nature of Shakespearean theatre. It was there, and Shakespearean script, Shakespearean text. So that resembles modern day cinema. In modern day, you cannot have lingering shots. You have to shift frequently. You see, that's what I said. For 72 seconds, Hitchcock could use 120 positions. You see, today, especially today, lingering shots, passing shots, you can find it maybe in West Bengal and Kerala films. They are all well trained in watching quality films. West Bengal and Kerala are well trained in watching quality films. Ever since such technologies came, but Tamil audience were always watching magic shows. You see, our Bhagavata Melas. So either you have to speak and sing, or you have to keep moving. So many cuts unnecessarily. You cannot have lingering shots. You cannot have long shots. Today, you see, today it's very difficult. Shakespeare could sense it then. He was frequently scene shifting, like various shots in a cinema, you see, and economy and compression, short scenes. So Shakespeare is an exception. Or else, for modern day, you see, drama cannot be recommended for screen. It would rather be fiction. So how drama is a multimedial narrative is what we have to discuss today, even though drama is different from cinema. How both have become the vantage points of multimedial narratives. Shall we go to the next slide? Do you have any question? You need not wait for me to complete the session. Sometimes students forget. So if you want to ask any question, you can raise your hand and ask. You can raise your hand anytime. If I know the answers, you are benefited. If I don't know the answers, I am benefited. You see, I have got a new question, then I will go and check it, you see. So, here are two things. One is the east and the other is the west. You see, it is Balarama Bharadam. It is not Balarama Bhagavatam. It is Balarama Bharadam. Balarama Bharadam by Kartigai Tirunal. In English, they write it as Kartika Tirunal. Kartigai Tirunal. You see, Kartigai Tirunal says, Arthakriya, it is a Sanskrit treatise on theatre. What do we have in Indian national Sanskrit treatise on drama? More famous than, come on, you know the answer. Don't consider me as a teacher standing here, you see. If you are bored, I am also bored. because we are sharing the same space, same time. Don't worry, don't worry. Which is the iconic treatise in India on drama from India? Don't tell me Tolkappiyam. In Tolkappiyam, Puruladhigaram, everything is there. That's different. I'm talking about Sanskrit treatise. In Tolkappiyam, in Puruladhigaram, drama is so well explained. So well explained. Natya, what did you say? Natya Sastra. Natya Sastram, Natya Sastra. It's very good, very good, very good. Natya Sastra by Bharadamuni. You see, do we have an alternative title for Natya Sastra? Have you ever come across an alternative title for Natya Sastra? Sometimes, thanks for the answer. Did you hear the answer? Natya Sastra. Natya Sastra by Bharadamuni. The most famous, monumental, you see, treatise on Indian drama, you see, with such a rich mythological background, It is not only considered a Shastra, it is called the fifth Veda. Actually, the origin of Natya Shastra came because of the demand for a Veda when the four Vedas became inaccessible to common man and there was a moral decadence in the cosmic universe. There was a moral decadence in the cosmic universe that the Devas went to Brahma and asked him what the reason was, and Brahma sent him to Indra, and Indra identified that since the four Vedas, what are the four Vedas? Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharvana Veda. These four Vedas became inaccessible to human beings, ordinary men. We needed a fifth Veda. So taking the dregs, taking the quintessence of four Vedas, a new Veda, which should be rich in its philosophy and at the same time will be accessible to common man, educative as well as entertaining. The fifth Veda was written with the behest of Brahma, you see, with the help of Indra, Bharadamuni, and the mythology says his 100 children, maybe the gurus, you see, 100 children wrote Natya Veda. Natya Veda, Natya Shastra. If it is a Veda, it is a treatise, it is a scripture. If it is a Shastra, it is a manual. You see, it's like a handbook. That's the difference between a text and a handbook. You see, like literature you carry for different gadgets. That is why Natya Shastra, Natya Veda is very important, because there each and every aspect of drama, right from set designing to acting, everything is so meticulously explained. So that is important. Similarly, this is a later work. You see, Bharata means Natya, you see, but Nadigan, Nadiga, you see, drama, Bharata means. Balarama Bharadam, Artha Kriya Karittuvam Bharatatuvam. That is the underline, that is the quintessence of this treatise. Artha Kriya Karittuvam Bharatatuvam. Artha Kriya Karittuvam Bharatatuvam. What is the philosophy of theatre? Attributing meaning to action or executing meaningful action. You can take it both ways. Attributing meaning to action and executing meaningful action. Attributing meaning, is there any difference? By doing something repeatedly to deliver a meaning, I can attribute meaning to that action. For example, in the first instance, somebody calls me a dog. Somebody calls me a dog. You say, you dog, they say. I'm not able to retaliate. So what do I do is, I move away from him to this corner, you see, and stand. And in the next instance, someone else calls me a darling, a dear, and I go to the right corner of the, and stand here. After two instances, or three instances, then if somebody calls me a donkey, if I go to the right corner, then you will understand that I have taken it positively. You see? Adi kaluda, அப்படின்னு கொஞ்சிறாங்கன்னு நினச்சிக்குவீங்க நீங்கள். When I was called a dog, I went to the left. Now when I am called a donkey, I go to the right. Now you will take the first instance as an insult and the second one as a praise because I have attributed fictional meaning to a space. That happens. இங்கே சினிமாவில் நடக்கும்பொழுது you take it for granted. ஏன்னா மதுரையிலேருந்து வந்தவொடனே மீசையை முறுக்கிட்டு எல்லாருமே டாட்டா சும்மாவோட அருவாளோடையாக தான் தெரியுறாங்களா மதுரையிலலாம். நான்லாம் இப்போ சும்மா மீசை வச்சுருக்கிறேன். இது சின்ன பையங்கள்லாம் அடிக்க வர்றாங்கன்னு சொல்லிட்டு மீசை வச்சுருக்கிறேன். ஸோ அதை பார்த்தா do we have such myth that is attributing fictional meaning to space? That's what. Tirunelveli, there was a movie in which a person from Tirunelveli thrashes a person from Madurai. You see? Yeah, yes. When there were so many movies were made about praising Madurai, then there was a movie, there was a movie Madras, which brought out the suburban culture of Madras. You see, the native culture of Madras, Vadasennai, and how people live there, their sterling qualities, how they are emotional, how they are trustworthy, how their life is dynamic, the movie talked about. So, we have been attributing meaning to abstract things. That's our business. Go to Albert Camus and read him. You see, that's our business. Always we want to attribute meaning to something. You see, if we are quiet, then somebody would ask us, why are you quiet? I'm quiet because I'm quiet. I have nothing to say. Are you angry? Are you sulky? Are you tired? We can never be quiet, especially being in the teaching profession for 30 years. I don't know who is going to close my mouth. You see, I don't know. We can never be quiet. We can never be quiet. We always attribute meaning. You see, we don't accept that what is, that is what is. Nothing beyond, nothing after. Maybe 100,000 Torus have to come to tell us, Henry David Torus have to come to tell us, you see, what you are living for, where you are living for. He is all that you are. All that you are. Why should you always attach something else to this? Why should you always something else to this? Why can't you live the moment? So, you can attribute meaning to your action. And there are inherent meaning in some actions. There are inherent meaning in some actions. You see, for example, while I am talking, if you look at your watch time and again, then I will understand. You may be looking at the watch just to see the time. But what I would take it, that it is getting late for you. You see, there are so many ways in which you can politely dismiss a person. You see, you need not ask him to go out. You see, so these are universal gestures. Universal gestures, which because of time and again they have been executed. Some facial expressions, beaming smile. You see, what are the two verbal expressions you have as basis for human relationships? I'm asking this question to you, honestly. Verbal expressions. You see, most often used, so basic for human relationships. Can you bring out two? Many may be there, but two which you consider most often used and most fundamental, most basic for human relationships, to sustain human relationships. Sorry, great, sorry, thanks. Did I say that? You said it. So they are universal. Thanks and sorry. But today, are there any other expression which have become so phatic, so meaningless, so cliched, like thanks and sorry? You see, we step on someone else's foot and even without looking at that person, we say sorry and we walk off. You see, we don't know. Or we just move in and ask, what's the time now? You say, what's the time now? And when he tells the time, thanks. We will move. This fatigue, you see. That's why a literarian, relentlessly he attempts to liberate language from the fetters of fatigue use. P-H-A-T-I-C, fatigue use. So, Artha, Kriya, Karitvam, Bharatvam, you can do that. You can do that. How can you become an original actor? By breaking the cult, by breaking the ritual. if you can attribute meaning to an action which is yours, not just mimesis alone, not just imitation alone, but improvising and creating a new meaning, that is also Artha Kriya Karitvam Bharatvam. You see, Artha Kriya Karitvam Bharatvam. People do that. Artists do that. We have been writing letter, you see, I am well here, are you okay there? Then came a poet who wrote for a cinema, Ni ingu sugame, naan angu sugama. You see, just the same thing, but improvised upon to give a new meaning with such freshness that became meaningful. Instead of being a babel, you see, it became meaningful. It became meaningful, you see. So, Artha Kriya Karitvam Bharatvam. How can you attribute meaning? For example, how can you do Oedipus's role? That's a question. Such experience we would never come across in our life. But how many productions are there for Oedipus? For Oedipus, I have to close by 3:45, am I right? You see, I have to close by 3:45, you see. Stay with me for 5 more minutes. How Oedipus's role was done. You see, when Laurence Olivier was asked to do Oedipus's role, it was new to him, but he wanted to do something really good. What did he do? He came to know that there was an animal called ermine. This animal was very precious for its coat. So the hunters, they wouldn't use spear or gun that would damage the coat of the animal. You see, so what they would do is they would sprinkle a salt, you see, which the animal likes very much, you see. So to eat the salt, the animal would come. And when the animal steps on the salt, there will be a glue along with the salt, like catching the rats and other rodents today. The animal will be fixed there. And then the hunters would obviously get up with weapons, which they were not going to use. But seeing the animals, seeing the hunters, the ermine would shout, cry, and die. They will wait patiently for the ermine to cry and die. Like Horatio, like Baba saying, think and die, cry and die. You see, they won't hurt the animal, because by hurting the animal, they will be losing the coat. Very expensive coat, ermine. You see, when Laurence Olivier came to know that there is an animal, he took his sound engineer and recorded its cry and came. And when the scene came, he let out that cry. The cry was unheard by audience. You see, most of the audience, till then, you see, it was original, it was imitation, it was improvisation. So, Bhavananubhavam Bharatvam. Bhavananubhavam. You have to imitate an action. You have to imitate an experience. Bhavananubhavam. How can you imitate an experience or an action? There are many ways, like Stanislavski has written in An Actor Prepares. I'm closing this with Stanislavski because there is an answer for Stanislavski, who is Meyerhold, Gregor Meyerhold. If Stanislavski focused on psychological internal, Meyerhold focused on the technical external, like looking at the watch, or when I look at you, that is technical external. Or you are not bored, but you want to see that fellow off. You see, so what can you do? Obviously, with all courtesy, as if you don't want, like Iago. I like that not. Iago would say. I like not that. I like not that, he would say. I like not that, he would say. But he would appear to be murmuring. But you would see to that the murmur is heard by Othello. That Othello, what did you say? No, my lord, I did not say anything, you see. No, you said something you don't like. No, my lord, did I say? That is how he will poison Othello's mind. Like that, obviously, not obviously, very discreetly, but obviously, making sure that the other person sees it. You can look at the watch. And that is technical external. Technical external. Whereas psychological internal is that even if you try to be very courteous, you see, you cannot help but looking at the other direction. You see, then when you look at the other direction, then the person should know that he's in spite of being courteous, the person is not able to tolerate this. You see, then it's better with all courtesy and respect. You leave the place. You leave the place. You see, so psychological internal and technical external. Stanislavski gave so many things. You see, so many things. You see, I'm just I have listed only just 3 things. Magic if. The second is emotional memory. And the third is fourth wall. Fourth wall. A stage has 3 walls. And the actor would imagine a 4th wall, you see, as if that is a real place. As if that is a real place, you see. And this 4th wall ought to be brought down in order to communicate with the audience so that the performance will become realistic. Emotional memory, you may not have undergone Hamletian experience or Odyssean experience or Sisyphean experience, you may not have undergone. But for you, something would have happened so shocking. Definitely. All that you have to do is observe, remember, recall and reproduce. That is what makes you a good artist and a good actor. Have you noticed small children? The small children would ask for ice cream during a rainy season. If you don't give it, what would they do? They would open their mouth and cry. At a point, their mouth would be wide opened and the breathing would be stopped. Have you noticed it? After gasping for breath, the child would be there. Then you have to slap on the back of the child to revive its breathing cycle. For that child, the experience is most disappointing. When the same child, when it grows up, it looks at it recalls the event and smiles and laughs at itself. Then when its parents deny the child of tour money, then the same cry comes out, maybe in a different form. And much later, the boy or the girl whom they love, the same cry. And everything, after all these experiences, you turn around and you smile and laugh and you walk off. If you can remember that, if you observe it in yourself and in others, remember that, recall that, and reproduce that, then it becomes bhavananubhavam, emotional memory. You can create an emotional memory. You can create it. I have many examples, but I don't have time. You see, Kalapriyavudi alagana or poem undu. T.K. Kalapriya's poem, beautiful poem. Andi karukkalil anda sadaka paravai adan கூட்டுக்காகவோ குஞ்சுகளுக்காகவோ படபடத்துக் கொண்டிருந்தது. எனக்கு அதன் கூடும் தெரியும், குஞ்சுகளும் தெரியும், அதன் பாஷை மட்டும் தெரியாது. அப்படின்னு. How can I? T.K. Kalapriya's beautiful poem. I translated that poem, and with that 4 lines I became friends with that great poet. You see, great poet. Like that, I have many examples now. What I don't have is time. So I will move on. These examples you take, and magic if. What is magic if? Not just, had I been in his place, I would have, how I would have reacted. No, that's very silly. That's very silly. People always escape saying that. You see, what is tragic irony? Tragic irony is Pillayar Bidike Korangamdi. No, that's not tragic irony. What is tragic grandeur? The great person. No, that's not tragic grandeur. Tragic grandeur or tragic irony are grossly misinterpreted. If only people from high degree fall down and that becomes tragic, what about death of a salesman? What about death of a salesman? A salesman dies, but along with him dies the dream of an everyman. So it's not always have to be a prince or of Herculean proportions. No. It has something else. What is this tragic grandeur? What is this tragic irony? At a point, you have been praising a character, admiring a character, loving a character, that you have fallen in love with that character incurably. At that point, you realize that the character is going to die. What would you do? You want to stop that character from its death. It is in your hand. You can either rewrite it as Shakespeare did Falstaff's character, or you can walk out of the movie hall keeping the character alive in your mind. You can do that. It is in your hand. You don't want the character to die. So what should you do? If you are forced to stay inside and do something about the character, you would ask the character to stop doing what the character is doing. When the reversal of fortune comes, when anagnorisis comes, when peripetia comes, you see, you will ask, you want the character to stop doing what the character is doing. But if the character stops doing what the character is doing, you will stop admiring the character. Because you have been admiring the character because the character has brave to do that. So you have to let the character die. Like Cleopatra committing suicide, come hands, come, you see. Because she wants to maintain, sustain her image. The myth she has so carefully built upon herself, and which she has to preserve even at the cost of her life. You see. So you will let the character die. The character which you love so much, you can continue loving it only by letting the character destroy itself. That is tragic irony. What is tragic grandeur? Not only you. The moment anagnosis come, ignorance. You see, opposite to ignorance. Revelation. When the character realizes that it is doing something which will cost its life, you see, the character doesn't give up. It continues doing it. That is, even when death is imminent, the character does not stop in its cause or in its pursuit. You see, so that is the tragic grandeur of the character. Tragic grandeur. So, what do we talk about magic if? Magic if is, if you want to do a character, then acting is believing. You have to believe in the existence of the character. That is what apotheosis of acting. Iago role பண்ணும்பொழுது நீங்க ஆடியன்ஸை பார்த்து இப்படி கண்ணடிச்சிங்கன்னு வச்சுங்க. That is not Iago's role. Iago should speak so convincingly that the audience should believe Iago as Othello does. Apotheosis of acting. That's what you call. You have to acting is believing. How can you believe in the existence of a fictional character for which Stanislavski has given this? This is called magic if. What is this magic if? You have to imagine the characters other than the situations given in the text. Other than the situations given in the text. There may be clues here and there. For example, there will be a love letter written by, say, Hamlet to Ophelia. Hamlet writing a love letter. You see, can you imagine that? Romeo can write a love letter. Even Macbeth can write a love letter. Othello can write a love letter. Even then. But can Hamlet write a love letter? But there is a love letter Hamlet has written to Ophelia, which his stupid father, uncouth father, has taken and reads it in the court. You see my daughter. The prince has written a love letter, but still listening to my advice, my daughter has disowned him. That is why the prince has become mad. See my product. My daughter. You see, the stupid, uncouth father reads the letter. When you listen to the letter, you don't admit that such a letter could have been written by Hamlet. Leave alone Hamlet. Even a degree undergraduate would not write such a letter, or +2 student would not write a letter. Today, you see, don't believe the stars, believe me. Don't believe the moon, believe me. Is it Hamlet? You see, but this reveals something to your mind, that Hamlet in his young days, or Hamlet as a youth, is so innocent. Such an innocent person has been degraded into a person in the same age, calling to be or not to be, or that this too solid flesh would melt. You see, that's what Hamlet does. You see, but you have to imagine Hamlet. There is a clue. With that clue, you have to imagine Hamlet in the situations other than the ones given in the text. Then the character becomes complete in your mind. The text focuses only one point, the departure and the destination. A particular period, the most intensified moment of the character's life. And you have to imagine the characters in situations other than the ones given in the text. Then the character will become complete in your mind. That becomes magic if. Had the character lived long, what a grandfather he would have made. Had I been able to visit the character in his boyhood, how the character would have gone to school. You see, you can imagine such things. That is magic if. And since the time, I have to close it down. I have many more slides, but at a point you have to stop, or else it will be abrupt. abrupt. You see, theatre is an amalgamation of many media. You see, sound, light. You see, there is actors' language and there is para-actors' language. Actors' language is his body, his mind, his body and his voice along with the text he has, you see. And that in itself ought to be researched, trained and understood. Even the voice, even the words uttered, there can be pronunciation, there can be intonation, there can be resonance, there can be grouping and phrasing, there can be tempo and pacing, and there can be projection. All these things have to be trained, you see. That's his voice. And para-actor language. Para-actor language is, for example, obviously, now recall in your mind the first footage you watched. You see, there was a set design, you see, and there were many lights used, including a smoke light. You see, a smoke gun was also used. Strobe lights were used in addition to general lights, you see, and there were BGM, background music. When the echo spoke, it was accompanied by a song, you see. So it has many mediums: verbal, oral, verbal, oral, body, space, and time. You see, they call it mimesis, proxemics, kinesics. Mimesis, imitation. Proxemics is bodily position. Kinesics is the way in which you handle the space and move. For example, if two people are seated side by side, if they have their legs crossed towards each other, then they are listening to each other. See the many photographs you have of Rajaji and Periyar, Kamarajar and Karunanidhi, Kamarajar and Anna. You see, they would be there, two opposite poles. But whenever they were on stage, they would be leaning towards each other and speaking something. Even if they were not speaking, there would be a slight leaning over, because they believed, they respected each other. One was a theist and the other was an atheist. The one was an anti-Brahminical person, the other was a Brahmin. But still, whenever they happened to meet, they would be so close to each other to share their views, because both were philanthropists. You see, that's the point. Even if you are seated side by side, if you have your legs crossed in the opposite direction, then you may be physically side by side, but emotionally or intellectually or whatsoever, you are far removed from each other. I'm giving you a very common place. Even in gaze, you see, I'm not going into post-colonial, post-modern theories like male gaze or female gaze. I'm not going into that. But even the gaze, there is something called personal gaze, social gaze, professional gaze, you see. Where do you look into the eyes of the person, on the forehead or in the eye or up to the nose? If you move below the nose, that will be personal space, you see. So eyes, how do you shake hands? How do you keep your body? Proxemics. Kinesics is how do you use the spatial relationships? You see, kineto, kinetic, kinesis, kino. Movement, you see, space, okay? There are many such things as a multimedial narrative, you see. And each and every text would be more suitable to a particular drama form. That is also. If I give you three instances, one instance, a tall and dark man entered the room and he smiled. This is one scene. A tall and dark man entered the room and he smiled. The second scene is, he slammed the car door shut, started the ignition and sped away. You see, second instance, you see. While the child was, two instances. Now tell me, which one would you prefer for radio and which one would you prefer for a visual? which one would do better in radio or on radio? The first one or the second one? Because the second one is full of sounds. He slammed the car door shut. So media in itself we must be very careful in choosing the media, you see. And in everyday itself there are many medium. You see, there are many media like verbal media, you see, oral media and visual media board, you see. So drama is a multimedial narrative, you see. If possible, read the killing scene in Edward Bond's killing of the farmer's son, you see, the gravedigger's son, and the farmer's son scenes in Edward Bond's Lear, an adaptation of Shakespeare's King Lear. That is an ensemble of all the effects. Read it if possible. If you have any question now, you ask me. I'm already 10 minutes late to the time allotted to me, you see. If you have any question, you can ask me. I'll try to answer. Or I'll think along with you. If you have any question, you can ask me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hope your speech will certainly have a beneficial effect on students. Thank you so much, sir. Now it's time for presenting papers. Paper presentation is held in 4 parallel sessions in the seminar hall, e-conference hall, language laboratory and hall number 40. Venue first, seminar hall. Chairperson is Dr. A. Nihamatullah, formerly head and associate professor of English, Sayyidatullah Upper College, and the coordinator is Mr. S. Khalil Ahmed, assistant professor of English, Sayyidatullah Upper College, and the paper presenters are Dr. P. Prince, Miss Jayas, Miss Rama, Miss Aishwarya, Mr. Samin Jahan, and Selvi M. Maria Juliet Rani. These paper presenters are asked to remain in the same hall. Venue 2, e-conference hall. The chairperson is Dr. A. Abdul Qadir, Director of Fine Courses, Head of the PG Department of Sayyidatullah Upper College. And the coordinator is Mrs. V. Krishnaveni, Doctoral Research Scholar. And the paper presenters are Mr. L. Ravisankar, Miss T. Mangekarasi, and Miss A. Lata, Mrs. Soundarya, Miss S. Maritai, Mr. R. Rajan Ganapati, and Dr. Vasuhi. Venue 3rd, Language Laboratory. The chairperson is Dr. B. Benson Tilagar Krishnadas, Associate Professor PG and Research Department of English, St. John's College, Palayangotai. And the coordinator is Dr. K. Hema, Assistant Professor of English, Sayyidatullah Upper College. The paper presenters are Mr. Lakshmanan, Miss Vinod, Dr. D. Nalina Palin, and Miss Anita Sindhuja, Dr. Rajeshwari, Miss Suleha Daslin, and Swarnalata, and Miss A. Saranyana Suji, Miss S. Preeti Sunata, and Miss L. Padmaja. Venue 4, Research Center, hall number 40. The chairperson is Dr. S. Jayanti, Assistant Professor of English, Sir S. Ramasamy Naidu Memorial College, Satur, and the coordinator is Dr. K. Kannamutaya, Assistant Professor of English and Research Head, Sayyidatullah Upper College. The paper presenters are Mr. Robin Stanley and Dr. Vasuhi, Mr. Aravind Raja, Miss Lata Pakeraj, Mrs. Punita Blessy, Mrs. Veena, I. Jamia Christiolite Jeffina Mary, Miss Aishwarya, Mr. Samin Jahan, and Selvi M. Maria Juliet Rani. These presenters are asked to remain in the same hall. Be ready with your papers.
May I call upon the paper presenters, Dr. R. Prince, Mr. Jayas, Ms. Rama, Ms. Aishwarya, Mr. Shamin, and Selvi M. Maria Juliet Rani. All of them are requested to be on stage, please. And first, Dr. R. Princey from St. Xavier's College is going to present a paper titled Dramas, the Critique of the Age, a reading of Arthur Miller's All My Sons from a new historical perspective. Please, madam.
Respected chairperson of the session, Dr. No.1 sir, learned professors from various institutions, and dear student friends, a warm good evening to everyone present here. I'm here to present a paper on the topic, Drama as the Critic of the Age, a specific reading of Arthur Miller's All My Sons from a new historical perspective. Arthur Miller is one of the most influential playwrights of America. He is a modern playwright. Especially he and his work was influenced by the economic depression of the 1930s and the Second World War. The text, the drama selected for study, All My Sons, focuses on the impacts of the Second World War on the lives of the middle-class Americans. Arthur Miller's protagonists, the characters, are drawn from the middle-class American life. And here, in this drama, we are able to witness what are the changes that happened in American society due to the socio-economic and political changes after the Second World War, focusing on Joe Keller's family. First, concentrating on the topic New Historicism, already some of the resource persons, they highlighted on this topic of the new historical approach. What is the new historical approach? It was introduced by the great American critic Stephen Greenblatt. What is new historical approach? What is the difference between old historicism and new historical approach? In the old historical approach or historicism, the text was taken as the predominant or important text for reading. That is, the main drama is considered to be the primary source to understand what is there in the text, and history is taken only as the secondary material or backdrop. When we come to new historicism, it recommends a parallel reading of the text and non-literary text, maybe history, or if it is a modern play, it may be an advertisement, or it may be a board or a newspaper clipping or a photograph. Anything can be taken as the secondary source, and equal importance is given to both the primary and the secondary text to understand how realistically the work is able to reflect the influences of the age. Now, coming to our particular research, this paper, I have selected Arthur Miller's All My Sons, the Modern Tragedy, as the primary source, and I have selected only two historical texts for parallel reading. One is A Concise History of the United States of America by Susan Mary Grant, and the other work is Political History of America's War by Alan Axelrod. So here, a parallel reading is done. We read the text, and after reading the text or along with the text, we read the historical instances recorded in the books of history. And we are able to analyze how Arthur Miller is able to portray the American middle class life, whether he has supported the views and ideologies of the age, how he is able to divert himself from the influences of the Second World War, what is his point of view. Everything is clearly given in this article. So coming to the plot of the drama, it's very simple. It happens only in one day, 24 hours. Just 3 acts concentrating on one single day. Joe Keller, a middle class man, he is an uneducated person. He has risen to the level of a very big entrepreneur, a very big businessman, and he was supplying the cylinder heads. It is a kind of engine during the Second World War to the Army Air Force. Because of his carelessness, there was a plane crash accident where 21 pilots were killed, and it is also taken from a real life incident from the history of American wars. And what happens to his two sons, whether they enjoyed the money which was earned by the father. One, Larry, the second son, he met with an accident or he committed suicide and he is missing. The second son, who is highly responsible, what is the decision taken by him? And through these different narratives, we are able to understand the middle class mentality where culturally deprived people of American middle class, they wanted to come to the center, especially during the Second World War, as beautifully pointed out by one of the critics. As Grant exemplifies, the Second World War helped the Americans relegated to the margins of the nation to come to the center, and Civil War and the World War to position themselves more squarely near its center. So they want to become materialistically rich. That was the greatest achievement of that time. And what happens? Joe Keller finds it as an opportunity. The Second World War provides him an opportunity to become an entrepreneur, a rich man. But his son Larry, when he understood that his father was responsible for the death of 21 pilots, he commits suicide. He is a pilot in the army and he commits suicide. And Chris, he is a responsible soldier and he is a doctor. And he believes that his father is a responsible person. Because this kind of attitude, responsibility towards society, that was a greater dream. It comes along with the American dream of the 1940s. What was America to them? Especially during the jazz age. As Peter B. High points out, it was the jazz age. Millions of Americans lost their jobs. That is 1930s, the Great Economic Depression. That destroyed the happy, confident mood of America. America was entering a new period of social anger and self-criticism. So within 10 years after the Second World War, America became the greatest power. And now there is a dilemma in the mind of Americans. Whatever Americans have done in the Second World War, whether it is right or not, that's the big question here Arthur Miller puts before the audience also. There are various references both in history as well as in the drama, where we find the father doesn't bother about the death of 21 pilots, but there were several other Americans who were really bothered because there were many Japanese Americans who were living in America. Now there was a question of the real responsibility towards society. What happened to them? How they were able to face the situation where America has bombarded Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We all know that. The black day in the history of the world, Second World War. Now 5,000 Americans, they have gone out of America during this problem, as pointed out by Grant in his history book. After the war, some 5,000 people renounced their citizenship and left the United States. Yet for most Japanese Americans and for other Americans, fighting a war abroad in the name of a nation that denied many of them equality at home offered the opportunity not just to prove their loyalty to the nation, but to secure the nation's loyalty to them. So now Arthur Miller, he critically analyzes the impact of the Second World War. America was a great power. But what happened to the ordinary people? Here Chris, he takes a very strong decision. He does not accept the money which was earned by his father, and to the heroine Anne, he uses these words. I felt wrong to be alive. After the Second World War, he was also a soldier. He was a commanding officer. All his soldiers in the contingent, they died before his eyes. And we see that to open the bank book, to drive the new car, to see the new refrigerator, what you have is really loot and there is blood on it. So we understand how powerfully Arthur Miller has portrayed the impact of the Second World War, especially questioning the responsibility of the nation and the citizens' responsibility towards the society. At the same time, we can also see the personal conflicts, the human relationship, the postmodern angst and dilemma. Because all the people, they were searching for meaning after the Second World War. Here we have Mother Kate. She is waiting for her son Larry because his dead body was not given to the family after the plane crash. So she firmly believes that her son will come back. And he was engaged to another girl. She asks Annie to wait. You must wait. You should not marry another person. And Annie wants to marry the brother of Larry, Chris. But it is not an imaginary situation. We understand that several other experiences, situations happened in a similar way during the Second World War. And we find that during another attack it is given, as for the American bombers, counter-strike against Japan during the Japanese attack, the Americans involved in the raid, they lacked sufficient range to return to an American base and were too big to land on the Hornet. Some managed to land safely in China. Some of them, they went to China, while others were abandoned in the air as their crews bailed out. Almost miraculously, they found their way back home. So now we understand that several occurrences happened, and the mother strongly believes that it is... Okay. So we have only limited time, so I'll cut short the points. So we understand that here Arthur Miller is able to reflect the mentality of all Americans, and he is able to question the political ideologies of America during the Second World War. And another important issue is the American dream. So what is the American dream? When America became the superpower of the world, every American had a dream to have more money, to have better status, to become more powerful, the way of life, whatever they enjoy, that should be the supreme thing in the world. They had a dream like that. But now Arthur Miller puts a very big question mark, especially with the American dream. And he portrays the futility, the failure of American dream. Joe Keller is the best example, an ordinary person who has risen to a greater extent as an entrepreneur. Now he has to take a very strong decision when his son and the family understands that he has escaped judgment only by using money. And here Chris does not accept the money which was earned by his father, and Larry has taken a very strong decision. He has committed suicide. And Mother Kate is also suffering from various problems, especially dilemma, confusion, unable to accept the reality, such kind of confusions. And here Arthur Miller exactly portrays what happened in America during the Second World War. So when we analyze this particular drama in the new historical aspect along with the two literary texts, as John McLeod illustrates, what is the use of doing such a historical reading? As already pointed out, multiple narratives, we are able to listen to the voice of different people in different perspective. And here, reading a text in relation to its context, first we can identify how such contexts are made present or absent in the text, whether it is realistically portrayed or not. And the second one, exploring how the text itself may intervene in the debates of its day and applaud or resist dominant views of the world. Arthur Miller is not the supporter of the American supremacy, and he is not against the American ideologies, but as a moderate, rational critic, he is able to present what happened during the Second World War very effectively in his work. And the new historical reading helps us to understand the realistic portrayal of the American society. And Arthur Miller has used the protagonist, the hero Chris, as his spokesperson to question many of the problems and the ideologies, political and social ideologies of America during the time. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Any questions? So Madam has narrated to you the story and also has highlighted certain historical incidents and how they impinge on the presentation of the theme in the drama. Right? So it was very clear. And the most important point is we need so many Arthur Millers now. Right? America continues to do what it was doing then, be it in Afghanistan, be it in Iraq, be it in Syria. Right? So it continues to bombard and kill people, not in hundreds but thousands. So millions of people lose their lives. So this is the economy. Not only in America, even in India, even in Tamil Nadu. Right? Someone boarded the train, one Muhilan. Right? He spoke about the police being complicit, right, in the murder of, the shooting down of 13 people during the anti-Sterlite agitation. He produced evidence. He said, I have video clippings to prove their active connivance and complicity. Then he boarded the train. He should have arrived here in Madurai, but he didn't. It's nearly 25 days since his disappearance. Habeas corpus petition was filed in the court. The court ordered the police to find out what happened to him, and no news till date. So this is history, and how it's going to be presented later on as a literary piece of work is what is new historicism is all about. So it's a very relevant, useful, critical analysis, right? So you got to, but you got to react, and I would like the paper presenters to be a little brief, right, so that we can allot some time for discussion. Okay? So any question you have to participate, you have to ask, either appreciate or find fault with, or ask questions, ask clarifications. So what is the crux of new historicism? You read the text in consonance with the other texts, right? Not the literary text cannot exist in isolation, right? It has to be read in the context of what is actually happening around at that particular point of time, right? As someone said in the morning, everything in the newspaper is false except the obituary notice. That is the only truth, right? So you find so much of media hype, right? And you believe everything to be true, be it on television, be it on WhatsApp or Facebook or anything. And you find that so much of lies are around you. So as a critic, you have to penetrate the web of lies and go to the truth. And that's where the creativity of the artist is there. And as a critic, you have to compare and contrast, right? So that's what she has done. It's a good piece, right?
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your words of appreciation. Thank you, everybody.
Aishwarya. Please introduce yourself. Say a few words, right, about yourself. Not much, right?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Aishwarya. I'm an assistant professor of English at the Madras School of Social Work. And I'm here to basically present a paper based on a play performance that I was personally engaged in back in the year 2012. So this was a play that we produced, and it was closely connected with my own MPhil work on meta theatre and audience engagement. So the title of the paper is Absurd Drama in the Environmental Theatre. And if you were listening to Professor Chandrahasan today, you would know that Richard Schechner is considered one of the landmark artists in world theatre. And his idea of something called environmental theatre, which basically involves bringing the audience into the drama, that is what we focused on. And so, first I'll begin with some slight theoretical background to this. So, looking at spectator as an important part of the drama was something that began with the Russian formalists. So, Jan Mukarovsky back in 1941 wrote this essay called On the Current State of the Theory of the Theatre, where he talks about how sometimes even the actor on stage can be a spectator of a fellow actor. So he kind of talks about how there is a blurring distinction, lines of distinction between what clearly marks off an actor from a spectator. The distinction is not really as secure as it used to be. So that's where it begins. And then you go on to realize that much of the theatre of the absurd was engaging with different questions of what is spectatorship. So the father of much of these meta-theatrical speculations was Luigi Pirandello, who in the 1930s was creating plays in which, the next please. He was creating plays in which basically the action would go on and then suddenly somebody would come on stage called the spectator. You understand? We generally assume that there's an action that goes on that's isolated from the audience, and then a character called the spectator comes into the drama and tries to stop the action and so on. So this was ultimately the person who was acting as spectator was still part of the star cast. And so this is how he started playing around with the boundaries of theatre. So that is Pirandello's contribution to how you can push the envelope when it comes to trying to see where does theatre really end. So absurd theatre, which takes after a lot of things that Pirandello did, kept on doing this kind of a conceptual engagement with the idea of spectatorship. So you see that many of the plays that we recognize as absurd plays, like Jean Genet's The Balcony, Edward Albee's Zoo Story, or Beckett's Waiting for Godot, or Krapp's Last Tape, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead by Tom Stoppard, all of these basically were in some form or the other a commentary on the nature of spectatorship. And even as they were engaged in this kind of a metaphysical engagement with spectatorship, there were other radical theatre makers, as they are called, basically because they were foregrounded more as dramaturgs and directors rather than as playwrights traditionally, like Richard Schechner, like Jerzy Grotowski, Peter Brook, Alan Kaprow, Marina Abramovic. These are all people whose names you must have kind of heard bandied about this morning. So these were innovative theatre makers who were basically trying to capture the audience into the action in different ways. And so, influenced by their precedent, what we attempted to do was, Schechner has this one landmark essay called 6 Axioms of Environmental Theatre. And so, we took some of those principles into our own hands to craft a performance experience that involved the audience both at metaphysical and at a very physically engaged level. So I'll just go on to describe the performance a little. Before that, one last example of how they were still testing the boundaries of audience versus actors was, there's this play called Offending the Audience by Peter Hanke. The title of the play is Offending the Audience, where basically you have 4 different actors walking up onto the stage, and they directly address the audience, saying, sit straight, don't breathe, and so on. So there is no action involved, there is no, all the dialogue is supposed to be anti-mimetic, in the sense that they were directly communicating with the audience, which completely breaks down the theatrical contract that we assume to have with the audience. The theatrical contract is, I have paid for a show, I'll be left alone, I'll sit there and just watch you. You go about your business on stage. That's our understanding of the theatrical contract, right? So Peter Hanke broke that down by making the actors directly address the audience. So these were some of the innovations that were going on at the time when Schechner came on scene. So this particular production that I am talking about basically involved 3 different scenes. Yes, sir? Yeah, sure. Yes, sure. This particular production that we are talking about involves 3 scenes. One taken from Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot, one taken from Tom Stoppard's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, and the third one from Dario Fo's Mistero Buffo. Dario Fo is this Nobel laureate from Italy who was able to do a lot of communist theatre back in his day. And you can see an example of Schechner's environmental theatre there, the set basically it relied on two of these very important principles of keeping the theater space flexible. The demarcation between the stage and the audience was always kept flexible, and also there was an attempt to directly engage with the audience themselves, like the example Professor Chandradasan gave this morning, where one actor is booed off stage. So he invites somebody from the audience to come and take his part and continue like that. So these were some of the innovations that Schechner brought into theater. So to talk about the production that we did, the first scene would basically involve, next slide please. Yeah, the first scene of the death of the actor, the play title is a pun on Roland Barthes' essay, The Death of the Author. So what happens there is, we realized essentially in Waiting for Godot, Vladimir and Estragon are spectators. They don't do things,
Please
they are waiting for things to happen.
Talk among yourselves. Please cooperate, otherwise whatever she is presenting will not be heard by you. Tea to be sipped, not to be talked about.
Thank you. So, what we realized even before we went into the production was that at a conceptual level, Waiting for Godot is a play about spectatorship, because Vladimir and Estragon are more spectators. They are waiting for an action to happen rather than taking charge of things and carrying forward. And so the absent actor there is Godot or possibly God. And so what happens there is, I'll just quote a few lines that we used in the production to show how the actors were trying to establish a connection with the audience in front of them. So there's this place where Estragon refers to all the people in front of them as people are bloody ignorant apes, and he kind of points at the audience when he says that. And then Vladimir later on comes up and looks into the auditorium and says, inspiring prospects, like with an ironical twang to his statement. And then they keep puzzling about why people are stupid enough to believe only one version of the gospel and so on. And all of these they do in an attempt to alienate the audience. But at some level, they confess a kind of similarity with them when they say, he wants to know if it hurts, and things like that. So in the following scene, what happens is, the following scene is from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead by Tom Stoppard. And it is in itself an extensive reflection on the nature of spectatorship. Imagine in Hamlet, these are the two most insignificant characters, and on stage, they are not actors. It is Hamlet and the King Claudius and the Queen Gertrude, all of these are the actors. These are only watching from the bylanes. So what happens on stage is that they kind of keep wondering what their role is. And I quote here, Rosencrantz says, I feel like a spectator, an appalling prospect. And he says, the only thing he's holding on to is an irrational belief that somebody interesting will come on in a minute. So they throughout show this very spectatorial stance on stage, and which we tried to again recreate in the auditorium. And finally, the third scene, so they are basically engaged in only watching the drama of Hamlet play out, and you realize that at some point the drama of Hamlet will play out irrespective of what they do. That is what makes them spectators. There is no way they can go and interrupt the action of Hamlet and stop anybody's death. They are in that insignificant position that most of us as spectators occupy. Then finally, the third scene is from Dariophos' Resurrection of Lazarus. Now this was the scene in which we brought in the environmental theater. The environmental theater basically, as I told you, dissolves the demarcation between the stage and the auditorium. So the resurrection of Lazarus, no please, the third scene, was inspired by, next please, was inspired by this particular painting, in which the moment you say resurrection of Lazarus, it's a very famous episode from the Bible where Jesus brings Lazarus back to life. And this particular scene was inspired by this painting where the focus was not on Lazarus, the focus was not on Jesus, it was on a person who had come there to watch the miracle, who ends up picking the pocket of his neighbor. So this is what we foregrounded in this particular scene. this was originally written by Dario Fo as a mime, as a kind of a mono-acting piece to be done by a single person. But we split the dialogue among 7 different people and created a kind of on-stage crowd where everybody is standing on the edge of the stage and addressing the audience as if they were all the graves. Imagining this as a graveyard, they were standing on the edge of the stage and talking to the audience and saying, commenting at them with things like pointing to them, saying, "So look, the tomb looks so ugly. All of them are dead," and things like that. And the other innovation we brought in was, I told you how both Lazarus and Jesus are insignificant in this play. So we really placed the tomb of Lazarus, so to speak, in the aisle of the theater. Which is, basically we piled up 2-3 chairs together to make up a tomb there, so that this entire crowd that had gathered there, the grave digger, some kind of a merchant who's selling things to the spectators, and then there is a cut purse who has basically come there to pick people's pockets. All of these were gathered on stage. And all of a sudden, there is a kind of magical moment in theater where the merchant comes and asks the grave digger, "Okay, tell me, where's the grave?" And they're all waiting for Jesus to come and perform the miracle. She jumps off stage in the middle of the aisle, not getting away through the traditional exit of the stage, but simply jumps off stage and walks down the aisle and starts pushing open the grave. She pushes open the grave, and then from the stage, they keep commenting on, "Oh, that's a stinking corpse. How is Jesus even going to raise this?" and things like that. And she ended up convincing the people in the audience to pay money and buy the handkerchiefs that she was selling in order to stop their noses because the corpse was stinking. So the moment the theatrical illusion was broken by somebody jumping off stage, we recreated the illusion of a stinking corpse being present among the audience by convincing the audience to stop their noses as well. So that was the moment when the magic of theater was resurrected for us. And I would like to conclude with Sheshna's remarks about how absurd theater works perfectly well with the environmental theater setup that he's been talking about, where he talks about a production of Eugene Ionesco's Victims of Duty. He uses these words: "We did not do Ionesco's play, we did with it. We confronted it, searched among its words and themes, built around and through it, and we came out with our own thing. This process," he says, "is at the heart of the environmental theater." And I think there could be no more fitting words to describe our own production of The Death of the Actor than Sheshna's own words on how these two go hand in hand, both in an attempt to bring the spectator back into the spotlight. Thank you.
You're working in Madras School of Social Work. What is the role of English there? What are you doing?
I teach undergraduates of psychology and social work, basic foundation English. But until last year, I was actually a senior research fellow in Madras Christian College. I've just joined MSSW.
Okay, this paper is based on her own attempt. So it is partly out of experience, what she did, right? So the relationship between the actors and the spectators, how it could be turned dynamic, how the spectator can be drawn in as an actor, how the stage can become a very powerful communicator and energize the entire atmosphere as it was presented, right, in the evening session. As opposed to cinema, drama can be very dynamic, right? You can interact. So that is the point she was discussing. It is good, but I think your MPhil thesis was on?
On meta-theater.
And there are, while lifting, sentences, I'm afraid you didn't care about the grammar and all. Even in the first sentence, while the theatre, the upset that emerged in the mid-20th century, Europe pushed the limits of what drama could be. No, you start with while, when? This is the thing. Similarly here, while combining absurd drama with Keller's methods is far from unprecedented. Again, the sentence is hanging. I found many sentences hanging, right? Again, on page 28, right, like in the following scene, the two shiftless tramps seem to be transfigured into their Elizabethan counterparts, who and spectators stranded. So lots of errors, I'm afraid. You didn't either revise or were a little careless. Anyhow, otherwise it's a good paper. It's good paper because it's born out of her actual experiment of staging a drama, and it is very strong both in theory as well as in practice. Anyhow, thank you. Next. Shameen Jahan.
Respected Chair of the session, Dr. Ni'matullah sir, Coordinator Dr. Khalil sir, and my friend Dr. Badsha sir, and all the others who have gathered here. A very good afternoon to you all. I am Shameen Jahan, Junior Research Fellow, working under the supervision of Dr. S. Prabaha in the Department of English, Manonmaniam Sundarnar University. And my paper is entitled Unstigmatizing the Other, Social Concerns in the Place of Mahesh Dattani. Art and literature play a vital role in the present world where those could make and break ideologies, manipulate discourses, and decenter the power structures. Drama, of course, like our Elango sir and all the people who have been talking here said about, is a multimedial narrative that has got paramount appeal to the maximum senses of perception. And many a dramatist instrumentalizes the discourse of drama and employs the medium to invite attraction to and respond to various issues of social, political, regional, cultural, religious, and other similar interests. The first ever Indian playwright in English to be honored with the prestigious Sahitya Akademi Award for the impressive contributions he has made to the arena of drama, Mahesh Dattani is a socially committed writer, I would say, whose dauntless compositions review the established norms, critique the institutionalized standards, question the stigmatization of the marginalized, and voice the muffled subalterns. And my paper focuses on analyzing the paradigm shifts which Dattani tries to bring out through his works. And among the most illustrious names in the list of his plays are Where There Is a Will, Final Solutions, Dance Like a Man, Tara, Bravely for the Queen, 30 Days in September, Night Queen, and Do the Needful. And Dattani prefers to deal with topics and subjects which are normally not chosen by playwrights in the Indian scenario. Every time he comes up with a play, he surprises the audience with novel, fresh and innovative themes like homosexuality, the plight of alienated factions, religious intolerance, gender discrimination, child molestation, and so on. And the works I have selected for the present study are Do the Needful, Tara, and Final Solutions. In the post-colonial perspective, every single person who is outside of the hegemonic power structure of the society is a subaltern. Be the hegemony political, social, economic, religious, cultural, regional, sexual, or gender-based. The preoccupation of the majority about the different minority as the other is exposed by Dattani with impunity in his plays. Unfortunately, in a country like India, where sexuality is synonymous with sanctity and purity, being heterosexual is the normalcy and homosexuality is considered a taboo, something sinful. A gay or a lesbian is labeled as a pervert, a morally degenerated creature. The so-called normal community brands the homosexual with the social stigma of the demonic other. And the community, the so-called normal community, characterizes him or her, the homosexual, as ignominious. Dattani's works, Where There Is a Will, Dance Like a Man, Bravely for the Queen, Do the Needful, and Night Queen, those are all bold manifestations which assert that homosexuality is neither a crime nor something abnormal. Rather, it is very much natural and instinctive as heterosexuality. Through all these plays, which are immensely popular, Dattani marks the paradigm shifts towards a positive inclusive mindset on sexual orientations. Since we have time limits, time constraints, I don't want to go into the specific thematic details of the plays. I would just go with one line thread or gist. In the play Do the Needful, it was in fact a radio play, perhaps the first Indian radio play to be aired by the BBC back in 1997. Okay, it was only last year, some 6 or 7 months ago, that in the Supreme Court of India decriminalized Article 377 and homosexuality. But it was back in 1997, some 20 years back, that Do the Needful was written by Mahesh Dattani and it was aired by the British Broadcasting Corporation. In this particular play, Alpesh and Lata both are quite unconventional and quite radical in their outlooks. But at the end of the play, Alpesh is a homosexually inclined person. But towards the end of the play, in order not to violate the social institution and established norms, they resort to the practice of marriage as a compromise, as a negotiation on behalf of their families. So it is something that they require involuntarily, unwillingly. The social institution of marriage, they are abiding by to the social institution of marriage for not disappointing their families. They are just doing the needful. That's exactly what the title of the play also indicates. And the second play I have taken up for the study is Final Solutions. And again, Dattani himself has admitted that almost all of his plays are on social issues about marginalized sections of society. A communal right and Hindu-Muslim divide form the crux of his work, Final Solutions. In this play, Jawad and Bobby, two Muslim boys, they are given refuge by a Hindu family while a communal riot rages in the province. Ramnik Gandhi is a Hindu businessman who gives refuge to Jawad and Bobby in his house. He takes care of these Muslim boys, that Hindu businessman Ramnik Gandhi, and he keeps them safe and away from the rioters. Dattani again dares to touch upon the inflammable issue of communalism, which not every other playwright would like to do. The play ends with the note that the offenders should be forgiven and the past must be forgotten. Dattani reminds us of the fact that peace and communal harmony are inevitable for mutual coexistence in a heterogeneous country like India, and that accepting the other, irrespective of the differences in religion and community, is the finest part of philanthropy. And the last work I have taken up for the analysis is Tara. Again, it's another work of great social significance. It was Dattani's third play. It's a poignant narrative on gender discrimination, which is a social evil prevalent in India since time immemorial. Tara is a striking play, certain to bring tears to one's eyes. Tara, she is one of the Siamese twins. Being the girl child, is a hapless victim of gender inequality. Though both the children, Tara and Chandan, were part of the same body and originated from the same womb, they are treated in entirely different ways by the family as well as society. Even their own mother, who had given them birth, at one point shows clear distinction and does injustice to Tara because her personal preference and choice was the male child, Chandan. And an inevitable and unavoidable surgery that risks the life of either of the twins is carried out, and though both survive, both Tara and Chandan make it to their life, it makes Tara crippled for the rest of her lifetime. And being a girl child itself is unbearable. Then having a deformity is atrocious, which brings absolute vacuum to life. Dattani unveils the unfairness in conferring upon all the privileges to the male child alone, marginalizing the girl child from the mainstream. The trauma Tara goes through in the play is not just confined to her alone. It is rather the universal plight of every girl child who is victimized by gender discrimination. And to conclude, it is quite obvious from the few allusions made here in the paper that Mahesh Dattani has always been bold enough to speak up against the injustices prevailing in the contemporary society, and he has made use of his tool, that is drama, the multimedia narrative, to the maximum possible effect to stand by the subalterns, articulate their cries, and stigmatize the other. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Most of you would have read, Final Solutions. Mahesh Dattani had been prescribed earlier. No? No comments? No questions? Well, being the other, right, needs to be appreciated. Uniformity will not always be the ideal norm. So that's the crux of the paper, right? And how Mahesh Dattani wants to understand that we have got to respect others being different from us. And imposing a uniformity is going to be wrong. But there is in the course of such appreciating the other, do we end up, praising things which are alien to our culture?
No,
For example,
I should have made a disclaimer at the very beginning itself.
So I want to know personally, right? This homosexuality originated mostly in prisons, where the men were confined, in seminaries, right, where there were no women were available, right? So this was the place where it originated. There is always a conflict between nature and nurture. Is it natural for someone to have it, or is it because of the circumstances, right? The way you are brought up, that you tend to have such. There is no conclusive medical evidence till date to prove that someone is by nature homosexual, right? But in the search for themes, in the effort to appreciate the other, are we inventing things? Are we overstepping our limits? Are we eulogizing the Western viewpoint, where they don't marry, where they, just get on, where they, do all kinds of things, where the family structure is completely destroyed. So I believe you don't have to simply take it as it is. You can be critical, as in new historicism, where you bring in, right, the core text. Why not apply the medical stand, and then try to apply it, rather than be an ardent advocate of all that the West stands for. That's my personal comment, please.
Yeah. Sir, I have quite a few good friends who are also lesbians, and so I think there are quite a few studies that they have shown me regarding the latest research on the subject, and I would beg to respectfully disagree with your point of view, sir.
The point is, there isn't any conclusive medical evidence to prove that it's inborn, unlike the attraction you have for the other sex. That is inborn, that is instinctive, that is oriented. Whereas here, there isn't any conclusive evidence so far. That's what I have read. And there was a very big article in the Hindu about, this was the title, Nature or Nurture, right? So in that situation, there may be one or two rare cases, but we don't have to blow it out of proportion, and we don't have to become flag bearers and then eulogize it and demolish the family structure. Right.
I'd be happy to share the recent studies with you, sir, but that's probably a discussion for another day. Thank you.
Even as the one who has done a small study on this topic, I don't think that Dattani himself is rather valorizing or glorifying the other. He's just he's just trying to convince convince us that we just have to accept them. We just have to respect what they're. That's all. He's not just. He's neither valorizing nor glorifying.
That's a very good point. For example, transgender.
Yeah.
There was a time when people used to make fun of them.
Yeah.
Right? They called them hombo, this and that, and they used to make fun of them. But at the same time, to encourage people to undergo surgical operations to remove their sexual organs, and then to become the other, and then to go about begging, and then to indulge in flesh trade, and then all that seems to be a kind of an reaction against the abuse that was heaped on them. So he may be very right in pointing out that Mahesh Dattani does not, glorify
or valorize. He doesn't want us to celebrate it.
If it is there, you've got to accept that it may be there.
Right.
That point is valid.
That's my point.
Accepting the other. Right? You may be a vegetarian, someone may be a non-vegetarian, right? Someone may not eat beef, someone may not eat pork, but you got no right to prevent the others from doing and then hate them for doing what they do. So that's the point.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank
it's
you
an unending discussion, but there is a religious angle too. As a Muslim, I can never accept homosexuality because in the Holy Quran, it is explicitly stated that it's not natural. God had never made them that way. It is those men who tried. So also, it's there in Bible, right? The history of Lot, and the same is there in the Holy Quran, the prophet Lut, and how the prophet offered his own daughter for the people to get married to, but they were rather after men and they were destroyed. So that's a matter of faith, confession, right? So from literature to religion. Okay, thank you.
To be very honest, I thank you so much from the core of my heart for adding such an epilogue to my presentation, because I might have been rather ambiguous or ambivalent to the audience, and you have made my point clear. Thank you so much, sir.
I wanted to find out one or two things. There is one of the error. I don't know, is it because of Badushah's editing or his own?
Sir, there might be some
look at page 68
issues.
While Plato's conception of art as well as drama was something as useless, is it Plato's or Aristotle's?
It is Plato, sir. Aristotle disagreed with
his disciple Plato. Again you say, his disciple Plato countered the master's credo. So who is the master?
Sure, his disciple Aristotle. That's my mistake, sir.
Your mistake?
Yeah, I think it must be my mistake.
So that's also
his
there.
Disciple Aristotle
and then the next paragraph, this paper focuses on analyzing the paradigm shifts which Dattani tries to bring out through his works. I don't understand the wording at all. Anyhow, you have to be very specific, and every word must be communicative. Right?
Thank you, sir.
And no superfluousness is needed.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good luck. Next. Maria Juliet Rani. You are here. Introduce yourself.
Good evening to all. Myself Maria Juliet Rani. I am doing my PG second year in Sadakatula Appa College. My paper is the implication of dramatic techniques and the psychological upheaval in the glass menagerie by Tennessee Williams. So generally I would like to talk about the 20th century American writers' mindset. Okay, so you would have crossed many works about Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, and Henry Ibsen. So most of their works are talk about the contemporary issues, especially about the effect of World War First, after the effect of World War First, and the domestic life struggles, and moreover Arthur Miller and Tennessee Williams, they often talk about American dream, the insistence of rising and shine. So whenever people pursued the dream of the American dream, life and rising and shine, immediately they pursued. At the same time they forget to encounter the life struggle. Rather they just go to the imagined life. So here also the characters also like this, and the technique, anticlimax technique and the other techniques, the melancholic theme also highly used by the writer Tennessee Williams in this play effectively. So anticlimax, we would have explained, we would have expected the climax scene is, okay, the Jim O'Connor, that fellow would be married one girl, Lara, and the entire session will be ending with a happy ending. But you know, Tennessee Williams exactly changed the expectation of the reader, and moreover he has given the music, the melancholy music, which represents the emotional characters of the every emotional characters. Lara, she is very tender and she is very fragile, so her through the music he exactly portrays about her mindset and also her illusion world. And meanwhile, yes, here the narrator plays two roles. One is the actor as well as the speaker. He introduces everything directly about.
Please don't talk. Please don't talk. Let her finish. Allow her to finish quickly.
He speaks the audience directly while acting or while performing the play in front of the people. He says, I'm going to explain the story which is actually happened in my life. And it is though it is a memory play, you know, it does not seem that it does not seem it is not illusional, rather it is it seems like a realist story. And also the every symbols in this play, especially Blue Mountain, glass menagerie, fire escape, as described by every characters. So Blue Mountain, the one of the symbols exactly portrayed to the Amanda's character, and the glass menagerie, which is always tender, right? Tender, fragile. So it is exactly portrays about the character of Lara. She is very tender, she is very fragile. And moreover, fire escape, another symbol, fire escape, it also explains about Tom's escapism nature. So he wants to become a poet, but you know, due to the poverty, he is working in the shoe company. So in order to escape from the place, at last the climax has portrayed his mindset, and he finally escapes from the troubled family. And moreover, the memory play, which is again insisting about the dim light. It is not bright to show the characters, rather it is showing the characters very dim, particularly the passive character of Lara. Whenever the argument between Tom and Amanda, the passive character has been lighted very heavily, because she is portrayed as a saintly figure. She has capable of chastity, and she is capable of you know, some sort of purity and very discipline in her character. So it is reflected like a saintly figure. And moreover, yes. So I would like to conclude this concept is, I have talked about three things, that is the dramatic technique and also the psychological upheaval. Both are highly affected by the writer, as well as he exactly portrayed about the American society, how it is showed about their illusion world, illusion life, and also their psychological insight with their nostalgia, longing for something. Though they are living in the present, in the reality life, they are longing for some nostalgia life, some missing life, which they cannot attain. So this is how I conclude.
Thank you. And she's doing her second year MA English in our college. So for a student to venture into a presentation, right? So that demands a lot of courage. I appreciate her courage. But at the same time, she has not listed any secondary source while writing a paper. It's a very good, Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams is a wonderful play for an analysis of this kind, right? But unfortunately, she has not read any secondary sources. And if you had read, you will get insights, ideas. Secondly, it's full of mistakes. I'm sorry to say, but I'm not going to read that out. You should give it to some professor and then get it corrected before presenting. I have marked all those things. This is for you. And especially while presenting it here, lots of errors that will, it's but natural when you begin. But once you get corrected, gradually you will develop a fluency in writing as well as correctness, right? But you should not bring it raw. Our college will accept, right? If it is somewhere else, they might, pass very adverse comments, right? So don't take it to heart. Right? But anyhow, here is the paper. I have made corrections. You go through, get it corrected, and show it to some teacher here again. Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Better say that is actually the literary adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, because even in the disclaimer or before the movie, he would thank Shakespeare and he will also acknowledge that this is actually the literary adaptation of Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, that's
and you told that the dialogue what Karthik says to Shakti is it is, you are comparing that dialogue with the Romeo and Juliet's conversation. And I would say again, it is also extremely fast.
The thing I would like to say here is literary adaptation of the dramatic sequences, right? The thing is, maybe some of the one particular instant can impress any one of the writer, right?
Yes, but you told the line, you have told here that we are all praising Mani Ratnam for this dialogue, but not Shakespeare. It is his actual dialogue. He didn't adapt from anywhere. So being a movie fanatic, I would say that Mani Ratnam, he has contributed a lot to the movie. He cannot say that he has adapted from some other play or drama.
And love is universal. Right?
Yes, of course.
Love is universal.
Again, whatever the scenes you have portrayed from Romeo and Juliet, you can completely see in the movie Ram Leela. It is actually the replica of Romeo and Juliet. In nowhere it is connected to Alaipaide.
So that's the insight.
As a good reference point, I think Jonathan Gill Harris has done an entirely commendable job of compiling all the Bollywood adaptations of Shakespeare. He's done a very scene and act kind of a structure to the entire book, where he says Bollywood is heavily inspired by Shakespeare. The book's title is Masala Shakespeare. He actually kind of performed this in the Hindu Literature Festival and all of that. So that
type of an argument will hold water, not this one, right? Anyhow. But love is universal. Love is really blind. To finish with an interesting anecdote, recently a king abdicated. In the history of Malaysia, nobody had abdicated. For the first time in the history of the Malaysian kings, right? There are some 6 kings, families, right? There are different states. So they'll become in turn the king. One of the kings abdicated because he fell in love with the Russian model, right? And wanted to marry. So they did not approve. Rather, he would forego his crown than the woman, right? So thank you. So you saw 2 films, and with an interesting anecdote, we have finished. Thank you very much. Thank you for presenting. Thank you.
Dear all, as one of our chairpersons wants to leave early due to her personal mission, we would like to honor our chairperson, Dr. Jayanti from S.R.N.M. College, Satur. I request Dr. Kanna Muthaiya, the Assistant Professor of English and the Research Head of the English Department, to honor our chairperson, Dr. Jayanti, Assistant Professor of English, SRNMC College, Satur. Please, ma'am. She has come all the way from Satur to contribute to our seminar by being the chairperson. of one of the paper reading parallel sessions. Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, madam. We have best papers of the parallel paper reading sessions, and here is the chairperson to announce the best paper of the session of her parallel paper reading session. Please, madam.
In my session, one of the paper was very good, and of course all the papers were good. It was all individual, their own opinions, and out of that Mr. Aravind Raja gets the best paper award in my session. Congratulations. He has done a wonderful job.
Come on to stage. I request our head of the department, Dr. Muhammad Hanif, to honor the best paper award winner of Jayanti ma'am's session, the research scholar, junior research fellow, Aravind Raja of Manoormaniam Sundarnar University, Tirunelveli. Please, sir. Dear all, we will have the valedictory session shortly. Please wait for a while. We are yet to receive the best paper results from other parallel paper reading sessions. They are yet to come. Once the report comes, we will break for the valedictory session and distribution of certificates. Please be patient.
நீங்கள் பார்த்துக் கொண்டிருப்பது உங்கள் கதிர் டிவி.